What is up, you guys? Today I'm going to show you guys how I made this unit from start to finish using my sewing machine. You guys, let's take a moment to just look at the melt on this lace. Anyways, let's get started. So this is a cap that I like to use. It's breathable and it's one size fits all. This is the cap that I use for every unit that I make. Then I'm going to take my logo, and this is what focus. All right, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to change my setting to the straight stitch. Usually I use the zigzag stitch for the units, but to sew the logo down I use the straight stitch. And I'm just going to go in and stitch that bad boy up. Alright, so once I made my way around the logo, to close it off, I always back stitch. So I'm just going to pull this little handle down and I'm going to go back. So I'm going to go backwards and then I'm going to go forward and then I'm going to go back again. So you see I'm going back and then I'm going forward and I'm going to go back. So this is like double stitching. You're going to make sure that your logo doesn't fall off. You want to make sure it's on. And that's how it's looking, so nice and neat. And then you're just going to cut off any extra thread that's hanging on there. So now I'm just putting my cap onto the mannequin head. And you guys see like this little line here that I'm pointing to right there. That's where I want my cap to stop. And I'm just going to pull the sides down. And at the back, there's another line right here. And I'm going to pull the cap down. And then I'm going to make sure that it's secure with some pins. So now I'm just taking a Sharpie and I'm going to make some lines across the cap. So these lines are my guidelines to when I start sewing the track down. These are the lines I'm going to follow. And I'm using like 2 finger spaces in between. I'm not putting them too close together. You don't want to make your lines on top of each other, because when you start to sew your tracks down, it's going to first of all shrink the cap from it just being all squeezed together, if you get what I'm trying to say. But don't worry about your wig being too thin because the lines are too far apart. That's why we double the wefts, and we'll get into that a little later on in the video. So now I'm going to take my closure, and you just want to pull the closure a little bit before the cap, and then I'm just going to use my pins, stick it down, and then I'm going to sew the closure down. So once I get to the end, I'm just going to cut the thread off, and then I'm going to tie it into a knot. And this is the only part that I do by hand. This is just how I'm comfortable doing the closures by hand. So before I get started, I am going to thread at least 2 or 3 bobbins because these things run out so fast, you guys, and it is so annoying to stop in between making a wig and have to thread the bobbin. So I pre-thread the bobbins, and I'm going to show you guys how I do that. So right here, I'm just going to take the thread and I'm going to follow the, like, there's like guidelines. It shows you exactly which way you should put the thread around that little, y'all, I sound horrible, you guys. I'm sorry, I cannot explain anything to save my life, but you can pretty much see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to put the thread through this little hole, and then you're going to hear this clicking sound right now. And then that's pretty much it, you guys. So you'll know when your bobbin is full when you hear this sound right here. That means it's full. It cannot go anymore. The machine automatically stops on its own. Just unwinding my bundles, and then I'm going to split it in half, and I'm going to double the weft. So double the wefts is basically like sewing 2 tracks together to make one whole track. So this is how, even though I made those big parts, it's still going to give you a full, your wig is still going to be full, because it's basically like 2 tracks equals 1, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to change my settings back to the zigzag zigzag, and then that's what I'm going to be using throughout the whole process. Once you're done doubling the wefts, this is what it should look like, you guys. It's so nice and neat. I went ahead and I did all 3 bundles off camera. So now what you're gonna do is take the hair and line it up with the lines, and then just begin to sew it down. And you always want to back stitch whenever you're starting and when you're finishing. You want to make sure you back stitch to just seal the tracks in. You don't want your tracks to unwind, so that's very important. Once I'm done all that, I'm going to just cut the extra thread that you see hanging around, and then I'm just going to cut that middle piece out where you see the closure is. So now I'm just going to take this adjustable strap, and I'm going to count like 4 tracks down, and I'm going to change my setting back to straight, but it really doesn't matter, but I like to use the straight setting. And I'm just going to go backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. Like I've been saying, double stitching is very important. You want to make sure it's secured. So I went ahead and did the styling off camera. You guys see how flat this wig is? I'll do a separate video on that. I didn't want this video to be too long, so now I'm just molding the baby hairs. So now I'm just taking a T-liner and I'm going to cut this bob going all the way around, and I really love using a T-liner. I really don't know why I haven't been doing this all along, but it really gives you that straight blunt cut that, you know, everyone's looking for. And then I'm gonna go back in, straighten the hair, and then that's pretty much it. And this is the result, you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys in the next one.